know that the bad activity is happening until the fraud or until the theft has actually been executed. 86% of these incidents were detected only after there was a noticeable irregularity. So we are merely being reactive here. And then we go back, we see something weird, we discover something weird through a manual process, then we go back to the tools, then we go back and look at the logs, then we do forensic examination, then we look at phone records. So we're not doing this proactively, we're not appropriately monitoring our environment, we don't know what the baseline is, we don't know what the trend lines are in terms of performance and user activities. Do you think we're managing identities well? If we were managing identities well, do you think it would be a lot easier to pinpoint some of this anomalous activity and at least see that it was me that was doing it? Or at least go find every British employee in your environment and put them under some scrutiny? I'm sorry, I shouldn't keep picking on them, but it's all the worst cases have come out of Britain. If we were more proactively monitoring, if this kind of user activity were tied specifically to identities, we were managing user accounts, we were managing privilege appropriately, this would shut down or disable a lot of this successful activity. We really need to look at the behavior of our individuals, because in the two big cases that I showed you, it was the work of one individual who just went crazy. If we were monitoring more proactively, we would be able to spot that activity a lot more quickly and respond to it before it became a full-blown event. Compliance can actually be our friend in this case. Compliance can actually help us. You know, I was talking about the checklist.
The last keynote.
Be very prescriptive, whereas something like Sarbanes-Oxley, when you're talking about all the publicly traded companies in U.S. markets, and then JSOX when you're talking about the publicly traded companies in the Nikkei, and then EuroSOX when you're talking about all the publicly traded companies in Europe, when you throw all those three together, it's much more difficult to be prescriptive and say, here are the 10 things you must do. Because then you're talking about a variety of different business models, different types of employees, different technologies. With PCI, it's much more homogeneous, so you can afford to be prescriptive. But still, they took aim at the risk. They took aim at the threat, and they came up with a checklist that is specifically aimed at that. Look at the top 5 control deficiencies from the last 2 years in SOX Section 404 reporting. Here we are. Improper change management, insufficient segregation of duties, excessive access, lack of general monitoring of the security infrastructure. Now, I know that some of these topics have been mentioned in a lot of other keynotes today, but the one thing that they have in common is that they all point directly to a trusted insider. These are all the types of exploits that trusted insiders can take advantage of. These are very easy attack vectors for them to exploit. We need to do a better job in this area. PCI as well. These are the top 5 failed PCI requirements, and right there are 3 of them that give easy access to a trusted insider to do the wrong thing. The unencrypted spreadsheets and data, unsecured physical assets, weak or easily guessed admin account passwords, and lack of log monitoring IDS, poor logging tools. Okay, these are not multi-million-dollar re-architecture solutions that we have to tighten up. These are the basic security controls that we need to do a better job. We just need to do a better job. Clearly, we are spending the money. This is a $32 billion market. We are not performing well. We are not getting a return on investment anywhere near what we pay out. Agreed? Not if this kind of activity can keep happening in such large numbers. I mean, security is not 100%. There's always going to be somebody who finds a workaround and somebody who manages to do an exploit, but there's just been way too much activity in this regard. So we're not doing enough, and we're not doing it smartly with the tools that we have already bought and paid for. So we really need to pay attention to how we're using those tools and if we're using them effectively, to make sure that we get the security return on investment. Just one quick word about the IBM Security Strategy, and that is that people and identity is at the top of our integrated strategy solution. We are trying to tie information security not only to compliance, which I think a lot of organizations do, and I think as an industry, we've all got a good handle on that. We're good at compliance reporting. We're good at aiming our tools at the compliance requirements. We're trying to take it up to the next level, to corporate governance, so that your security spending, your compliance efforts are all supportive of the business model, that they help make you a more productive, more efficient, more well-managed business. And that's what governance is all about. And that's also why governance is not only there to stop Jerome Kerviel, it's there to make us better managed organizations. And organizations that, you know, we can have reasonable assurance are doing the right thing at the right time. But of the 5 elements of IBM's security framework here, it's people and identity that are at the top. And certainly ID management is a key part of that. Because as we saw from the 2 big cases, it was the bad actions of individuals. It was not the failure of tools. It was not the failure of general corporate policy. It was the people who made it their mission to go around that corporate policy, to get around those tools, to do something deliberate and to do something bad, and that's why they were successful. And that's where we have to spend our time. So, just to sum up, because I think I've gone over time, but you have to think about our access to assets and our individuals. As we're doing all this spending, remember, the $32 billion market, as we're doing all this spending, just remember, these are the 4 main areas where we would see something like an identity access and identity management solution assist us in streamlining our efforts. Code of conduct and training requirements. Legal discovery issues and evidence. That would be the log retention requirements there. Operational and general, I'm sorry, am I on the right one? Yes. Operational and general risk management and IT-specific risk management. As you're spending your $32 billion this year, make sure you're spending it wisely and in the right place. And make sure that you not only buy the tool, but that you buy the right tool and that you work with it appropriately, that it's based on risk, that you've done the appropriate risk assessment within your environment, that you've got the right suite of tools that will help mitigate that risk and will help manage your business. We should stop looking at compliance as a checklist. We should start looking at compliance as a byproduct of a good, effective information security program. If you do a good faith risk assessment, you establish a good level of risk tolerance within the organization. IT security follows that, and compliance will always be a byproduct, and that will lead you straight to good governance. It works perfectly in PowerPoint every time. Oh, come on, that was a funny joke. Just remember that for both compliance and government, it's critical at all times that we understand who has access to what, and that we restrict the access to critical resources, critical assets, critical data, strictly by the principle of least privilege. No more open access. Terminate accounts when they're no longer in use, either because someone has left or because someone has gone on to a new job or something like that. Make sure that we're managing and monitoring user privilege and user accounts. Make sure that we are on top of identity management. And don't forget about harm, because as we saw from the 2 cases, any one of us could be one data breach away from some serious harm. So, all that being said, I know I'm standing between you and dinner, so I will wrap it up unless there are any questions. And you have my contact information if you want to talk about this later.
So, thank you, Marne. I think it was a very great presentation as the, let's say, closing keynote for today. Honestly, you're not standing between here in the dinner, but we will first have our European Identity Award. We will start at 7 o'clock, so in a few minutes down there in the basement. And afterwards there will be dinner. As I've said, we will have American food in the basement, and on the upper floor we will have Mexican food. So I invite every one of you to attend our evening reception, which usually is a great event. So thank you for your attendance until now. Tomorrow, I think I've talked about what we will do tomorrow. Who is ready to get up early? You're cordially invited to